One of the things we have to learn to do as we read the Bible is to listen for the resonances, the echoes, the things that go off in our minds. Haven't I read that somewhere before? And the answer usually is, yes, you may have done if you've read bits of the Bible, if you've sung the Psalms or whatever. And in this passage that we're looking at this week, the stilling of the storm in Mark chapter 4, verses 35 to 41, anyone who knew the Psalms as Jesus' own followers, and Mark's readers certainly would and did, would recognize something very special happening here. Because when they get onto the boat and then they go out into the lake and there's this great storm, and Jesus is asleep. Jesus is sleeping in the storm? What's that about? It's a wonderful picture. And they try to wake him up. They say, hey, don't you realize we're going down? Don't you care? And Jesus gets up and scolds the wind and says to the sea, silence, shut up. And the wind dies, and the sea goes calm. And for those with ears to hear, the echoes are all there, particularly from the Psalms. Psalms like 65, verse 7, or 89, verse 9. Or, I think particularly one of my favourites, 107, verse 29. It'd be worth looking those up. In 107, we have people going down to the sea in ships, occupying their business in great waters and seeing the works of the Lord and so on. And then it all goes horribly wrong, and the sea swells and rages, and they're tossed to and fro and stagger like drunken people, and they cry to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivers them from their distress. And he makes the sea calm, and they end up arriving at the harbour where they were intending to go. And I think Mark, in telling this story, has those in mind, and he also has, way back behind that, the story of the Exodus, when the sea stood there between the people of God and safety, and God made a way through the sea. And then when they had gone through, it came back and drowned their pursuers. And perhaps for those with really well-attuned ears to hear, there is another story again, right back at the beginning, when the Spirit of God moves over the waters of chaos, and God says, let there be light, let there be dry land, let there be plants, let there be creatures, let there be people bearing my image. When we read a story like The Stilling of the Storm, it is both very vivid and very evocative, and we have to hear those overtones. What are the overtones then? Well, they're the overtones of, yes, this is how God does stuff. It isn't just, oh my goodness, Jesus seems to have some extraordinary powers here, though of course that's true as well. It's just, who are we dealing with here? According to the Bible, this is how God behaves, and now Jesus is behaving like that. And so for us, as often, we find ourselves in the same position as the psalmist. In fact, one of the things I love about the Psalms is that they teach us how to pray. Prayer isn't a distant, alone to the alone, calling out to a distant, detached deity. Prayer is standing there with our hands on our hips saying, hey, God, it's time to wake up. Something's gone horribly wrong. Don't you care? We need to get out of this mess. When we pray like that, we don't necessarily get exactly what we thought we were asking for. We get what God really wants for us, and often from us. And sometimes we have to get to that point so that then fresh realization can dawn who Jesus is, who God is, and who we ourselves are. And as we read a passage like this, as we journey through Lent, there may be all kinds of storms going on in our lives. We can pray this prayer, we can wake Jesus up here and now, and then we'll see what he'll do. But we have to be prepared then to hear all the echoes of what's going on, and in the light of those, follow him wherever he leads.